Random House Audio presents Legends 2, new short novels by the masters of modern fantasy. Volume 2, edited by Robert Silverberg. Outlander, Lord John and the Succubus, by Diana Gabaldon. Read for you by Simon Prebble. And Shannara, Indomitable, by Terry Brooks. Read for you by Charles Keating.
Outlander, by Diana Gabaldon. In 1946, just after World War II, a young woman named Claire Beecham Randall goes to the Scottish Highlands on a second honeymoon. She and her husband Frank have been separated by the war. He is a British Army officer, she as a combat nurse, and are now becoming reacquainted, rekindling their marriage and thinking of starting a family. These plans hit a snag when Claire, walking by herself one afternoon, walks through a circle of standing stones and disappears. The first person she meets, upon regaining possession of her faculties, is a man in the uniform of an 18th century English army officer, a man who bears a startling resemblance to her husband Frank. This is not terribly surprising, as Captain Jonathan Randall is her husband's 6 times great-grandfather. However, Black Jack, as he's called, does not resemble his descendant in terms of personality, being a sadistic bisexual pervert. And while attempting to escape from him, Claire falls into the hands of a group of Highland Scots, who are also eager to avoid the captain for reasons of their own. Events culminate in Claire's being obliged to marry Jamie Fraser, a young Highlander, in order to stay out of the hands of Black Jack Randall. Hoping to escape from the Scots long enough to get back to the Stone Circle and Frank, Claire agrees, only to find herself gradually falling in love with Jamie. The Outlander books are the story of Claire, Jamie, and Frank, and a complicated double marriage that occupies 2 separate centuries. They are also the story of the Jacobite Rising under Bonnie Prince Charlie, the end of the Highland clans, and the flight of the Highlanders after the slaughter of Culloden, to the refuge and promise of the New World, a world that promises to be just as dangerous as the old one. And along the way, the Outlander series is an exploration of the nuances, operation, and moral complexities of time travel and history. The series encompasses hundreds of characters, both real and fictional. Among these, one of the most complex and interesting is Lord John Grey, whom we meet originally in Dragonfly and Amber, and who appears again in the succeeding books of the series. A gay man in a time when that particular predilection could get one hanged, Lord John is a man accustomed to keeping secrets. He is also a man of honour and deep affections, whether returned or not. Lord John's adventures are interpolations within the storyline of the main Outlander novels, following the same timeline, complex as that may be, and involving the same universe and people, but focused on the character of Lord John Grey. Lord John and the Succubus. Historical note. Between 1756 and 1763, Great Britain joined with her allies, Prussia and Hanover, to fight against the combined forces of Austria, Saxony, and England's ancient foe, France. In the autumn of 1757, the Duke of Cumberland was obliged to surrender at Klosterzeven, leaving the Allied armies temporarily shattered and the forces of Frederick the Great of Prussia encircled by French and Austrian troops. Chapter 1. Death rides a pale horse. Grey's spoken German was improving by leaps and bounds, but found itself barely equal to the present task. After a long, boring day of rain and paperwork, there had come the sound of loud dispute in the corridor outside his office, and the head of Lance Corporal Helvig appeared in his doorway wearing an apologetic expression. "Major Grey," he said, "ich habe ein kleines Englisch-Problem." A moment later, Lance Corporal Helvig had disappeared down the corridor like an eel sliding into mud, and Major John Grey, English liaison to the 1st Regiment of Hanoverian Foot, found himself adjudicating a 3-way dispute among an English private, a gypsy prostitute, and a Prussian tavern owner. A little English problem, Helvig had described it as, The problem, as Gray saw it, was rather the lack of English. The tavern owner spoke the local dialect with such fluency and speed that Gray grasped no more than 1 word in 10. The English private, who normally probably knew no more German than ja, nein, and 2 or 3 crude phrases necessary to accomplish immoral transactions, was so stricken with fury that he was all but speechless in his own tongue as well. The gypsy, whose abundant charms were scarcely impaired by a missing tooth, had German that most nearly matched Gray's own in terms of grammar, though her vocabulary was immensely more colourful and detailed. Using alternate hands to quell the sputterings of the private and the torrents of the Prussian, Gray concentrated his attention carefully on the gypsy's explanations, meanwhile taking care to consider the source, which meant discounting the factual basis of most of what she said. "And then the disgusting pig of an Englishman, he put his," incomprehensible colloquial expression, "into my," unknown gypsy word, "and then she said she'd do it for a 6pence, sir. She did, she said so, but then these barbarian pig dogs did revolting things under the table and made it fall over so the leg of the table was broken, and the dishes broken too, even my large platter, which cost 6 thalers at St. Martin's Fair, and the meat was ruined by falling on the floor, and even if it was not, the dogs fell upon it snarling, so that I was bitten, and when I tried to seize it away from them, and all the time these vile persons were copulating like filthy foxes on the floor, and then—" At length an accommodation was reached, by means of Gray's demanding that all 3 parties produce what money was presently in their possession. A certain amount of shifty-eyed reluctance and dramatic pantomimes of purse and pocket-searching having resulted in 3 small heaps of silver and copper, he firmly rearranged these in terms of size and metal value, without reference as to the actual coinage involved, as these appeared to include the currency of at least 6 different principalities. Eyeing the gypsy's ensemble, which included both gold earrings and a crude but broad gold band around her finger, he assigned roughly equitable heaps to her and to the private, whose name, when asked, proved to be Bodger. Assigning a slightly larger heap to the tavern owner, he then scowled fiercely at the 3 combatants, jabbed a finger at the money, and jerked a thumb over his shoulder, indicating that they should take the coins and leave while he was still in possession of his temper. This they did, and storing away a most interesting gypsy curse for future reference, Gray returned tranquilly to his interrupted correspondence. 26 September 1757. To Harold, Earl of Melton, from Lord John Gray, the township of Gunwitz, Kingdom of Prussia. My Lord, in reply to your request for information regarding my situation, I beg to say that I am well suited. My duties are— He paused, considering, then wrote, "Interesting," smiling slightly to himself at the thought of what interpretation Hal might put upon that. "And the conditions comfortable. I am quartered with several other English and German officers in the house of a Princess von Lohenstein, the widow of a minor Prussian noble who possesses a fine estate near the town. We have 2 English regiments quartered here, Sir Peter Hicks' 35th and half of the 52nd. I am told Colonel Rysdale is in command, but have not yet met him, the 52nd having arrived only days ago. As the Hanoverians, to whom I am attached, and a number of Prussian troops are occupying all the suitable quarters in the town, Hicks's men are encamped some way to the south, Rysdale to the north. French forces are reported to be within 20 miles, but we expect no immediate trouble. Still, so late in the year, the snow will come soon and put an end to the fighting. They may try for a final thrust before the winter sets in. Sir Peter begs me send his regards." He dipped his quill again and changed tacks. "My grateful thanks to your good wife for the small clothes, which are superior in quality to what is available here." At this point he was obliged to transfer the pen to his left hand in order to scratch ferociously at the inside of his left thigh. He was wearing a pair of the local German product under his breeches, and while they were well laundered and not infested with vermin, they were made of coarse linen, and appeared to have been starched with some substance derived from potatoes, which was irritating in the extreme. "Tell Mother I am still intact and not starving," he concluded, transferring the pen back to his right hand. "Quite the reverse, in fact. Princess von Lohenstein has an excellent cook. Your most affectionate brother, J." Sealing this with a brisk stamp of his half-moon signet, he then took down one of the ledgers and—
Sample complete. Ready to continue?